Fourth City Council. Would you be so kind to come to your seat so that we can affirm we have a quorum? I hear we do, but I don't know it until I see it. Good afternoon, members of the City Council. Thank you. Two are trying to escape. Jared, you have so many. Thank you for being so accommodating. And with that, I am calling to order the City Council work session meeting for October 24th. A quorum is established, and the first thing on our agenda is to get a report. And I might say a very important report from our city manager, David Cook. I will not put you on a time limit, but I do expect you to be timely.
Oh, I'll be timely today. Thank you
you.
very much. Good afternoon, everybody. First thing I'm going to do is turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Dana Bergdorf, to recognize one of our department heads who recently got an award.
Oh, wow. No accidents over there, Dana.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council, and thank you, David. So a couple of weeks ago, we had the opportunity to attend the annual Greater Fort Worth Builders Association Awards Night. Also want to recognize Councilmember Lauersdorf, who was there with us as well, and I think had received perhaps a Member of the Month or something award. It was, yeah, it was very special. But even more special was that we had our very own DJ Harrell honored with the Spirit of Cooperation Award for 2023. And he was also honored alongside former Mayor Betsy Price with a Lifetime Achievement Award. And so Fort Worth was very well represented, and David was also able to appear. We were nominated as a finalist for the municipal award as well. So anyway, great kudos and awards for Fort Worth, and want to thank DJ and his team for their excellent work and continuing to improve our development process for builders and all of our customers. So thank you. All right, and then.
Thank you. We're going to call now on DJ to give his acceptance speech and to introduce some new staff that he has.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, City Manager Cook. I stand before you today to introduce some new employees in Development Services Department. First, I'd like to introduce Evan Roberts. Evan began his career as a plans examiner with us in 2002, and since then has worked, either as a city employee or a consultant in Fort Worth in our building code. Evan has a bachelor's degree in architecture from UTA. He's also in our city's cohort program to get his MPA at UTA now. He's a master code professional and he's a certified building official. He'll be serving as the city's building official going forward. The second employee that I'd like to introduce is another new assistant director. Her name is LaShonda Stringfellow. LaShonda's worked in North Texas in the planning industry for about 20 years now. She served as a director in 2 other cities where they've all won 3 awards from American Planning Association. She's a certified member of American Planning Association. She has an AICP. She will be serving as our zoning administrator over all of our current planning and our land use. LaShonda.
Thank you. Thank you, DJ, and thanks for keeping that acceptance speech short. Next, I'm going to call on Renee Tejas to introduce 2 new employees in his area.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So today I'd like to introduce newest members of the Communication and Public Engagement team. We have, for the first time in more than 20 years in the city, a full-time translator interpreter, and she is Vanessa Frias. She was born and raised in Mexico City. She graduated from Universidad del Valle de Mexico, where she earned a bachelor's degree in clinical psychology. She's nationally certified by the Commission for Healthcare Interpreters and is working on becoming internationally certified. Previously, Vanessa translated an entire ISD website into Spanish, bridging the gap in communication between an English and Spanish-speaking families. And she came to the city of Fort Worth after being a full-time medical interpreter for the JPS Healthcare Network. So Vanessa, we're glad you're here.
I'm so excited.
For those that saw the video that we were using at our budget town halls that the city manager used to kick off the budget meetings with, that was actually a product of Cameron's application process. He made a video for us, and the manager was so impressed with that. He used it to help explain our budget priorities. So safe, so clean, so green. And he is a graduate of Texas A&M University Kingsville. He comes to us from Corpus Christi, where he moved just a few weeks ago, where he led their municipal channel. He's a self-proclaimed South Texas boy, minus the country music. And he is a movie buff, new to the area, hoping to attend all types of sporting events, as well as see what the region has to offer before going into multimedia communications. He wanted to be a sports reporter, and he'll be helping us up our video game, both in short form and longer form, social media and Fort Worth TV. And we had a little write-up in the Roundup and in the City News about each of these. And incidentally, it was the most clicked on story last week for both the Roundup and City News. So we welcome you both.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. Next, we have informal reports. This might be the shortest informal report list in some time. So the first one is the monthly development activity report, and DJ Harrell is available. The award-winning DJ Harrell is available if you have any questions. Yes.
I have a question.
All right, DJ.
I just wanted to hear feedback on what folks were saying, what the difficulty they were having navigating the website.
Yeah, so, are you talking about the customer service survey results there?
Yes.
Yeah, so mainly, we, when we get the survey results every month, we have staff call the individual respondents to get that feedback. And basically, they're just saying that, one, although we put videos online of, step-by-step navigation of our application process, through our permitting system, it's a little bit more difficult than the average user would like to go through. Also navigating to the specific resources that we do have posted on the website. So part of it is, it's a challenge, it's a fine line between sharing enough information and then making it too complicated to find anything. And so that's kind of the feedback we've received, over the last few months.
And just one correction in the September large commercial projects, is that for this year?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
oh, the Clifton Riverside Apartments is in 11 and not 8. I just noticed that.
Oh, thank you, I'm sorry.
We still haven't figured all that out.
Thank you, DJ. The second informal report is on management and diversity review. And Deanna Giordano is available if there are any questions. All right, moving on. Our third and final informal report is on the Trinity River Water Wheel. And Valerie Washington is available if there are any questions.
I have questions.
Valerie?
Valerie or Cody, either one.
Or Cody?
So good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Cody Wittenberg, Interim Environmental Services Director. Happy to be with you to talk about this important project. Wanted to go through a couple of quick slides maybe, and then we can dive into some questions if that's okay.
That's fine.
So this is a picture of what a water wheel looks like. This one's actually located in Baltimore. And if you, just from an architectural rendering standpoint, this is just sort of a graphic representation of what this looks like. You can see that the flow of water is moving through the water wheel machine once it's installed. Those buoys direct everything to the rack system, and that conveyor belt takes it up into a dumpster where we're able to dispose of that appropriately. So with this project, we're looking to locate this near the future City Hall. It's just southwest of the Henderson Street Bridge along the trails, so we can engage with residents who are enjoying the trails, also to promote environmental stewardship while we're working to promote a clean river. And just some high concepts, of course, you see those buoys again, you see that the system conveyor belt moves through it, and then it moves into a floatable dumpster. That dumpster is replaceable as it gets filled up over time. And just to give you a couple of reference points, we're not the first ones to have proof of concept of this project. This particular version is on the Juan Diaz River in Panama. This was built last year and constructed with completion. And then here is one of the original. There are currently 4 now in the Baltimore Harbor. They started in 2014, and in 2017, 18, and 22, they added 3 more for proof of concept.
Is ours going to have big googly eyes like theirs?
So, I think we're going to be working to try to develop some opportunities for public input on what it looks like in the end.
Googly eyes for sure.
Googly eyes.
Okay, Cody, I just had a couple questions on the funding source. So
Absolutely.
each water wheel is $2.5 million?
So in the original concept in 2021, we were in an idea or conceptual phase, and we considered one for both the West Fork and the Clear Fork. Whenever we wanted to determine a pilot project, we decided to start with just one and experience what that feels like. And for the initial water wheel to be 1.2 million total, back in 21, we got council authority to receive up to 2.5, but we're going to start with the 1.2.
Okay, and then we're splitting that with TRWD and then additional private dollars coming in.
Absolutely. So we've received about 600,000 in private donations, received or committed, and we've split the remaining costs between TRWD and the city of Fort Worth equally at 350,000 each.
Okay, and who's doing the fundraising? Is it Streams and Valleys?
So it's been a collaboration between TRWD, Streams and Valleys, and the city of Fort Worth, and we've all worked together. For those that want to still donate, we are still receiving donations, and you can donate that directly through the city, or if you prefer, you can go through Streams and Valleys as a 501c3, and then we can receive that funding through that nonprofit.
Okay, is the city of Fort Worth responsible for maintaining the water wheel?
So in the end, TRWD will be responsible for the maintenance. They've committed to that, but we're going to cost share at a 50-50 cost split between the city and TRWD.
Okay, and last question, what's the lifespan of the water wheel?
Sure, so lifespan is estimated by the engineers to be over 20 years, and so we'll be moving forward with that plan. Of course, we may have to maintain over time. It is along a river, so there may be challenges from time to time, but we'll be working through those quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Carlos.
Thanks for the presentation, Cody. A question, I know that in the IR it says, the water wheel is expected to be, an attraction and will not inhibit river recreation and enjoyment. In terms of safety, all right? Say if I'm a kid and I have a lot of idle time, I say, hey, what's in there? Are there any provisions for safety if someone decides to get too close to the water wheel?
Absolutely. So we're hoping it's very difficult to actually access the water wheel. It would, and as long as you're obeying normal safety precautions, there should not be an issue. We're also working with our site engineers to evaluate safety, evaluate educational signage, and try to make it a well-developed site that allows for you to get close, but not too close.
Okay, so maybe the requisite e-stop, electro sensors to say, hey, if something of a certain size gets on there, automatic shut off.
Absolutely. And even the system itself will have some safety precautions. We'll work through those with the engineer.
Okay, and then one final question. Which council office in the new city hall will this be in view of?
So I believe it's in Council District 9.
Okay. It's yours. Okay,
Absolutely.
those are my questions. Thanks, Cody.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Cody. Mayor Pro Tem, that concludes my report.
Okay, moving right along, next on the agenda, are there any questions regarding changes in membership on boards and commissions for October 31st? Hearing none, moving right along. Questions regarding City Council M&C log for October 31st? Wow, you guys are easy. Y'all sure? Okay. Oh, now I know why you're so quiet. We're going to get an update on the future City Hall from Tanyan with the Athenian group.
Are we good to go on the video? All right, good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate you all having me here today. Before I start, with the employee introductions that are just made, I just want to give a couple of kudos real quick to some of those folks that are really new to their roles that have been integral to what we're doing on this project. So Vanessa, in the translations that you're going to see forthcoming on our signage for multilingual signage in Future City Hall, which is net new, was all done by Vanessa, brand new. So kudos to her. I think she turned it around on day 2. So I'm looking forward to see what day 3 employment looks like. And then Evan Roberts, in his new role as building official, you know, we've done this project with a number of municipalities across the country, and he's one of the best I've ever worked with at finding ways to say yes, right? He doesn't lead with no, which is extremely rare in municipal development. So support him all you can. He's great. So with that, all right, moving forward. So our update today is our typical quarterly update. We have a couple key things we're going to cover, as well as kind of progress overall. I can't click forward, sorry. Oh, I can do that. That's fine. I'm good with this. All right, so we'll cover some project updates. We're going to talk about the upcoming management forum, a brief overview of security, infrastructure in the building, stacking and ready for use schedule, and then questions and final thoughts. Obviously, y'all can jump in wherever. You know, as usual, I like to go through our goals of the project. I know that many of you have now seen these multiple times. Some of you, I think this will be your second presentation with the goals, but you know, ultimately we are driving an inclusive and engaging public space, maintaining the Class A look and feel, being efficient, equitable, and flexible with our workspaces, creating a sustainable and cost-efficient building, driving the transformational delivery of city services, obviously namely being development services and those supporting functions, and then creating the vision for the next 50 years of this City Hall. So a little bit of an update. So when I came to y'all in August, on the left was the 20th floor mayor and council update. The top picture there is the future mayor's office, and the bottom left picture is the future work cafe. As you can see, since then, a lot of great progress. We have the lighting and ceilings in. I was actually in there today on the mayor's office, and the millwork is going in, making great progress there on that front, all LED, all energy efficient. And then the work cafe, as you can see, the millwork has gone in, making great progress. I see that as a great place for council members, district staff, and otherwise to be able to work and collaborate together in a bit of an informal space and kind of create some of those bump-in interactions that I know that, you know, David and the city staff are really looking forward to. So making great progress there. I'm excited about getting y'all over there and really what we're driving on that front. Moving forward. Yeah, that's fine. I'm good with this, it's no problem. All right, so the council chambers, so obviously we got our federal permit granted on July 25th. We are now substantially complete with our piers, which is a big milestone, 120 piers for our facility. So those are all complete as of this morning. I was hoping I was going to be able to tell you that the final grade beam, which is this component over here, was poured, but with the weather this week, that's probably going to get pushed out a couple days. But the piers are all complete, which is great news, especially given just the remarkable amount of hurdles that we've had to get across to get to that point, including drilling through pretty much the entire church that was there previously that was just demoed and left on the site. So we drilled through bricks and steel girders and all kinds of fun stuff from that. The superstructure will start in coming weeks, the heavy timber delivery in January, and like I said, tracking towards the first chamber meeting the winter of 24-25. So I have a quick update video if you want to jump to that for me of kind of where we're at. This was taken yesterday evening. So you can see the site's a little muddy. This was end of day, but just to kind of show the progress here. So we have moved forward, as I mentioned, with all the pier drillings that are complete there. We're just working on the final pouring of the grade beam on the right side of the image here. You can see that we've also, you have our trailers and everything on site, starting to work through those components, making great progress there. For those of you that have been over the tower lately, you know that the reticulating hammer has been quite loud, and we're almost done with that, which is fantastic. But, you know, kudos to the team for navigating a bunch of really tough site circumstances and making really great progress. So that obviously is the start of not only the council chamber facility, but meeting our compliance with TRWD and the Corps of Engineers when it comes to waterproofing and grading and otherwise. You know, not an easy task, but making really great strides there. So I'm excited for that to continue to move along, and I will feel much, much better once our last grade beam is poured and we're out of the ground and starting to move forward. So awesome progress there. Thank you. All right, cool. We can jump back to the slide deck. Yeah, the drone videos are really cool. It's been a really great enhancement for us to have those, especially with progress. All right, so business equity spend tracking, as always, I try to, give updates on that quarterly. I continue to be proud of the work that the Diversity and Inclusion Business Equity Group from the city, along with our partners at Lindbeck, have done to really bring as many contractors to the table as possible across different categories. So at this point in time, our A&E contract is heading towards a close where it's really just construction administration. They're tracking just a little below their business equity goal, but we actually have them in our models finishing about 27.5%. So we're in a good spot there. Lindbeck is now kind of in the meat and potatoes of their project with the council chamber and many floors under construction at the same time. They're tracking actually ahead as well, and we've been really lucky to have great participation on all of our bid contracts in the tower, and then obviously our Athenian team continues to chug forward. Some recently awarded contracts. I know last time I was here, there was some asks from the group just to get a flavor of kind of what's been awarded to different groups. So floor painting, we've broken up between a couple different groups, but Vela Brothers won a recent set of floors, 100% MWBE, structured cabling through Able Communications, also 100% MWBE. The chamber interiors, as you can see, was split up into multiple packages as we promised to try and make them smaller and more digestible for different groups. A little bit more coordination on our front, but allows all those groups to come in above 25%, many of those 100 as well. And then the roofing for the chambers coming in at 45%. So these are all really good news stories. I can tell you in working a number of these projects, especially the structured cabling and some of the IT contracts are historically really difficult to award to MWBE vendors. And so I've been really proud of the work that the group's done there. So as always, if you have groups that you want to get involved, and make sure you have the bid list that's listed on the Future City Hall website. We're happy to work with them to get them registered with the city and be able to bid on contracts. All right, security and access control. So I'm gonna give a bit of an update just kind of on our overall infrastructure. Some of the operational components will come later, but for the Future City Hall, a multi-layered security approach is what's being designed. So we'll have marshal and security team presence, advanced camera systems, with a control center that's viewable both in-house and remote, access control systems to make sure that, folks can get where they need to, but they don't get lost in the facility. I know that's something we hear today from citizens and residents when they come into City Hall, they sometimes just wander around. So we're gonna help them with that with signage and access control, destination-driven elevator systems to make sure people get to the right floor, and then weapons detection systems at the chambers and exploring for the facility. Through a multitude of deterrents, these measures aim to create a secure environment that's also welcoming and inviting and mitigates safety issues. From an operational perspective, the city subcommittee on security and safety is still working through the final staffing and support plans, weapons detection and supporting programs for the building, and then staff and public entrance finalization. So we're looking to have an update to you probably in our Q1 briefing at that point in time, but making good progress there. We appreciate your support and work on that. From building signage and wayfinding perspective, this is when it starts to become real, right? As you start to change the signage over from Pier 1 and some of the signage is there to City Hall. And so what you're seeing here is the locations of the current, building signs that exist on the site, with the type 4s being kind of your typical monument or type signs, and then your 1, 2, and 3 being kind of special or welcoming signs. So we will be replacing all of those with the new signage to meet City Hall and meet the Downtown Design Review Board guidelines and otherwise. We met with DRC this morning on those topics, and so those will all be replaced. We'll also have vehicular and pedestrian signage. We'll have some multimodal signage kind of throughout the site as well. And then in key places for key functions, with Vanessa's help, we will have Spanish and English signage for some of those functions as well. It's pretty exciting. I want to give you a little flavor of kind of what we're talking about. So this is the existing sign that's there today. Obviously a little outdated, not super welcoming, not super inviting. Also really blocks the view of the tower and what we're trying to do there. And so this is what we're looking at here. So you'll have City Hall, you'll have kind of directions to parking, some greenery. This will be the limestone that kind of runs throughout the whole site. So common theme, great view of the building. We'll also have monument signs throughout that have different locations, kind of going away from this metal pedestal to more integrated to what we're looking at. These will all be backlit so they can be seen at night for council chambers and otherwise, but direct people to different locations on the site, including the council chambers, the parking garage, and then the great lawn, right? So the green space that we've created on the backside of the facility. And then at the front door and the front door to the council chambers, so on the left side, you can see kind of the two main doors to the building today. We're going to be adding kind of City Hall monument signs to the left here, and then having the Fort Worth logo embossed kind of in the ground in front of it, just welcoming people to the facility. And then by the council chamber here, we're creating these really great grand steps that lead up to this facility, and there'll be a cool photo op for folks to come and take there. That's one thing that I heard from all of you, is being able to create memorable places for folks when they come to City Hall. So we wanted to make sure we brought that to life. So excited about that. From a parking perspective, so we've done a lot of work over the last really 2 years looking at parking, and we know that parking is a very hot topic, both on how it's built, what it looks like, how the program works, et cetera. And so after exhaustive amount of research and modeling and otherwise, we're going to be expanding vertically on the parking garage. There are several advantages to this. Number one, obviously, we'll provide sufficient parking for staff and visitors, but we get to retain this great surface lot that's back here. A couple advantages to that. Number one, it creates for great quick in and out for visitors to council meetings, services, and otherwise for the city. It also just candidly doesn't create an eyesore of a parking garage right off Forest Park, right? Creates a great area for that. And then ultimately for some of the larger city vehicles that may come from time to time to visit the building, creates a great place for those to park. So that's awesome for us. The expansion also reduces the garage downtime, so the construction time on that is about 4 to 5 months. The garage itself will only be closed in its entirety for about 30 days, and we're trying to do that in the January time period just to shore up the building before it expands. We don't anticipate any parking shortages throughout the entirety of the program. The plan will include some screening, as you're seeing on the garage here and here. We've worked really closely with Fort Worth PD, the mayor's detail, and the marshals to make sure that we have screening to protect the council chambers and otherwise. And then obviously some gate updates to the parking gates to make sure folks can get in and out safely, including parking for council members and elected officials. And then our estimated completion is probably late Q2, early Q3. And like I said, with no major closure time, we should be on pace to make sure there's no parking shortage during that. But obviously some work to be done here, but I think making good progress there and ties in very nicely to the facility as a whole without creating a very large and very expensive garage kind of just adjacent to the facility. This week is our management forums that we talked about in August. This is a huge milestone for the project. I want to give a kudos to Deanna and Kayla and several others from the HR team for working to pull this together. This is not easy to bring together all of these supervisors, managers, and above from across the city. If you figure there's about 7,000 city employees, you can do the math on how many managers and supervisors there are. But it's great to get everyone together. We'll have those at Rockwood Golf Course Thursday and Friday. The forum is going to cover kind of a mix of things, right? Number one, focusing on the change enablement process before moving to future City Hall, but also briefing people on the questions that they have, right? As many of you know, one of the biggest barriers to key change is eliminating the fear of the unknown. And so what we'll walk through is kind of all of the key operational components in the facility: parking, workspace standards, safety and security, technology, the amenities, and then kind of accommodation planning for the facility. We'll talk through the organizational change component and then have some breakout sessions with departments. So in our prep sessions in September, we tasked department heads, ADs, and supporting staff with coming up with ideas of how they want to work differently, things they want to explore, and we'll have some great time to work through that with our team during those sessions. So it'll be great to have that. We're excited to bring everyone together and kind of kick off that process as well. As a reminder for folks, the stacking plan for the tower currently looks like this, right? So mayor and council on 20 and then kind of cascading down as you're seeing here. The couple things I want to point out are wave one of moves, right? So we have a couple waves of move, but wave one really starts with ready for use floors, right? So when departments move and otherwise, we worked out with them individually for their functional need, but the floors will be ready for use. The data center obviously going first next month, ready to bring in the infrastructure in the tower. 20th floor will be ready for use just after the Christmas holiday. Floors 12 and 7 will be up next, which will be late February, early March. 14 and 19 will be ready kind of in that April time period. And then, 5 and 6 will be in the May, June time period. So that's kind of wave one. There are a few other floors that we're looking to tuck into that schedule that are light finish, which would be floors 10, 11, and 15. And then really kind of the remainder of the floors will slot out just after that. So making good progress there. I can tell you, knock on wood, we're currently tracking ahead on all of the floors in the tower, which is great news. So as those come up, we'll definitely brief folks on, but making good progress there at this point in time. The other thing I do want to point out is that the new security system will be brought live in the November time period. So all the cameras, access controls, and otherwise will be ready, obviously, prior to folks moving in the facility. So very important point there as we move forward. So some key upcoming dates. I know I covered a lot of information. I'll pause in just a second, but management forums later this week. New security infrastructure, as I mentioned, is being commissioned, this week and then kind of the first part of November. The 20th floor being complete. Obviously, a lot of planning, a lot of work, but I appreciate everyone's support to this point. So questions for me?
The first question is from Councilmember Flores, then Councilmember Charlie.
Okay. You're doing a great job. I like this.
Well, they just get crazy sometimes.
I know, I noticed.
Tanya, thank you for the presentation. You answered one of my questions during your talk, but you said you had to go vertical more so on the parking garage. How many more spaces are you going to add?
So there'll be about 265 net additional spaces. So our total parking will be above the necessary threshold for daily operations, even on council Tuesdays. So we run models on that and otherwise. We originally, when we first look at the parking model, really in kind of May of 2021, we were looking at total folks to and from the facility on the day. We've since collected data on what's actually happening with remote work and sick and city occupancy and vacancies and all those things, and been able to kind of right size where we're at to be as efficient with taxpayer dollars as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Charlie.
So mine is just about the business equity goals. Are a lot of those, is that just the city goals or is that the self-imposed goals?
Yeah, so those are all the agreed upon goals that we've worked with the business equity groups on. I can tell you that the individual contracts are targeting higher goals, which is why you're hearing some of the numbers that I mentioned as far as where they're tracking towards. But yeah, there are some self-imposed goals that we've worked between the project teams, but they're contractually obligated to what's been listed there.
Okay, is there any way we can, or maybe just if we could, look at veteran-owned small businesses and service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses
Yeah.
as part of some of those goals too?
Sure.
A lot of those, I know a lot of companies in Fort Worth that actually already have their hub certification, their historically underutilized business certification through the federal government. So they qualify for federal government
Yes.
projects based on that. And so that'd just be one thing that it'd be great to see if, for some of those upcoming projects. I know quite a few veteran-owned small businesses that would, love to get their hands in on some of that already have some of those certifications that you may be looking for.
Yeah, that's fun. That sounds fantastic. Let's make sure we set up some time with your office and with Gwen Wilson from the Business Equity Group to talk through kind of what contracts have been awarded to what groups, and then where we can, have some outreach support there. That'd be fantastic.
Thank you.
I was going to suggest you get with Gwen. They are bulldogs when it comes to finding those companies. Councilmember Beck.
Sure. Thanks for bringing up that business equity thing. Totally support veteran-owned businesses. It was a big push, as David knows, for the reason for creating that additional position was try to help that. But I want to make sure that by including those, that we're not using that to, there's a difference between historically underutilized businesses and disadvantaged businesses, and I don't want those two things to get crossed.
Sure.
I want to make sure that we're keeping those separate so that we don't hinder our DBE goals. That's really
Sure.
important. Parks. So what, I appreciate the presentation. There's so much green space around there, and I know we're going to have a little walking trail, and we're going to do some lights. But what are we doing? Is that going to be an official park space? What are we doing to activate that particular, all of that green space to make it, to make sure that we're communicating that the building itself isn't the only community asset, but around it too, we want to make it inviting and signal that people are welcome.
Sure. No, great question. So at this point in time, it is not slated to be an official park and some of the components that come with that. Now, we do have plans, obviously, for the walking trails. We have a number of native plantings and creative areas that are a partnership between what we're planning to do and meeting the TRWD Green Stormwater Guidelines. So we have that and some of those components. If there are things that we want to explore further, I'm happy to discuss. But at this point in time, we're planning to have signage to point people to the Great Lawn and otherwise, but that's kind of where we end.
Thank you. I think I would like to further that discussion, so if we could maybe set something up with my office and Parks to see what we're doing to make
Sounds
sure
great.
we're utilizing that. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you for a fantastic and thorough report.
Cool. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Next on our agenda, we have presentation on zoning notifications, policy and procedure from DJ Harrell, the award-winning DJ Harrell.
Good afternoon again. DJ Harrell, Development Services, here with Stephen Murray, who is our Manager of Zoning. This presentation is a follow-up from an IR we did recently to talk to you guys about the way we notify folks on our zoning cases. We've added some additional information and some examples, to walk you guys through what that looks like for our residents. So the outline of this presentation is basically who we notify and how. We notify folks through email. We notify some folks through the website, some folks through mail notifications, and also signs on the property and newspaper postings. So by mail, we notify all property owners within 300 feet per the tax roll. By email, we notify all neighborhood associations within a half mile. In addition, we started a new practice of notifying folks by district when they sign up for a subscription. They'll get all email notifications for zoning changes within their particular district that they've requested. Then on the website, we notify all upcoming board and commission meetings as well. And then a sign is placed on the property, and then the newspaper publishing. This is what the mail notification looks like. It's a postcard. It's mailed again to all the folks within 300 feet of the subject property. It's mailed 10 days prior to the zoning meeting, and it's printed in English and Spanish. The QR code here is a QR code that takes you to additional information on site-specific information. Emails to neighborhood organizations within a half mile. They're also printed in English and Spanish. They contain a site plan and application for some background information, and they're also emailed 10 days prior to the zoning commission hearing. The new practice of sending it by council district, it looks similar to what we've sent to neighborhood associations, but it also has district-specific information on other districts. It's also printed in English and Spanish. On our website, we also, post all the cases on our website. We include an interactive map, so residents can go through different zoning cases to learn more about them. They also include site plan information if applicable. So we also, through our partners in TPW, post signs on the subject sites, and the signs are placed prior to the zoning case going to the zoning commission. And then signs are also, what the staff does, they take photos of those signs and places them in the Acela record, the permitting record, so that we can be sure that we've posted signs on all of the zoning change properties. And these signs are removed after the council final action. Lastly, the newspaper. So the zoning notifications are posted 15 days prior to the zoning, to the city council hearing. There's a new initiative that council's asked staff to explore. Our IT folks and our city secretary folks are working really diligently to produce the ability for us to map locations of the speakers of our zoning cases. The main focus is to identify the distance between the speaker's residence and the site that is in question. This will enable our council to get a better understanding of where the speaker lives in proximity. So with that, they've noticed a couple of limitations that I wanted to share with you guys really quick. One is we won't be able to validate the accuracy of the contact information because they'll be self-reporting this address. Also, interested parties that give PO boxes, or if they transpose numbers in any way, they won't be able to be mapped and produced for the council hearing. And then lastly, any speaker, regardless of where they live, must be allowed to speak at the council hearing as well. To sum it up, this again is Stephen Murray. He's our zoning manager. This is his staff, Brett Magnum, Alondra Beltre, and Shad Rotten are the senior planners in zoning. They're the ones that produce the zoning reports that you guys see every month. Stephen and I are available if there's any questions.
Councilmember Charlie.
Just one, well, I guess too, on the zoning signs, is there any way, like in the future, we can incorporate the QR codes on those instead of just the phone numbers?
That is a goal. That is a
Okay.
goal. We're trying to identify how much it'll cost to change all of our signs because they're all, we've been using them for
Correct.
years. So we're working with TPW and the folks in the design shop to identify how we do that. Because we want to have that QR code lead them directly to the case report on the website so that they can get all the additional information and not have to call staff and, get in the queue to get that answer.
Yeah, because, I think that'd be great. Because then we can also track analytics too on our end because we have neighborhoods, they show up the last minute, and it's like, well, you've had, how long have you had to actually get information? Too, I really like the speaker address thing on the cards. I know it's self-reported, but, from time to time, we have some folks that show up that sign up to speak on a topic that they have no idea what they're speaking about, and nor do they even live anywhere near it. So I think that just kind of helps us have an idea. And it'll help us direct residents if they think they have a valid concern to, like, oh, actually, you live in Euless. Like, go check with the folks, just to help them out, because a lot of times you just might not know it's not a Fort Worth deal. So I like that. So I know it's a time suck, but just know I certainly appreciate it.
Charlie, that was my request, and what I interpreted is they're not able to do it.
No, ma'am.
You're gonna be able,
I think, is Kevin here? I think they're really close.
okay. What my concern was what you stated, too many people speaking on zoning issues who live nowhere near here, and we need to be able to give priority to the people who live within that 300 feet to a half a mile. So what's it gonna look like?
Yeah, and we have a mock-up here on the speaker cards. It'll show you what you'll see. We've blacked out the content information, but, we're gonna show a map with the pinpoint of the address, if it's mappable.
Okay,
And then we're also, the biggest issue that we're having trouble with right now, and look for a resolution quickly, is mapping the distance from the zoning case or whatever's being considered to that address. And there's several different reasons why that's a challenge for us, but we're gonna get that solved here pretty
so
quickly.
you just showed child, so I really should be happy, is that what I'm being told? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna be rolling this functionality out in the very near future as soon as we get that technical issue figured out.
I see Councilmember Beck.
Thanks for bringing up the QR code. We will still include the phone numbers, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And that's just my one concern when we go all digital like that, is that a lot of folks that really pay attention to zoning are actually our analog residents, and so I don't want to discourage or keep them out of the process. I know, I hate those.
So just like you've seen on the other slides, we want to reach them whatever way they communicate. So we want to provide the QR code for the folks that just want to self-serve and get their own answers. And then those that need to call, and then those that need to come down, right? We want to be open for however they want to interact with us.
Great. Thank you for doing this, because I know we had some issues in District 9 that led to folks not feeling like they received proper notice. And this certainly helps us know that when we make a decision, those that have wanted to be engaged in the process have had ample opportunity to do so. So thank you very much.
So DJ, my idea to make developers pay for the sign, you guys too friendly for that?
No, ma'am, not exactly. So the last time we brought it to council and, we met interdepartmental team that included Transportation, Public Works, and Development Services. Part of the concern was if the sign blows away the first day or, because you can see how sturdy, right? Transportation, Public Works, they put it on an existing pole when they can, or sometimes they'll insert a pole to make sure that the sign stays there. And, you know, because in the past, we've had a lot of applicants, you know, complain about signs not being there. And so we wanted to, you know, continue to ensure that we were offering as much notice to the surrounding properties as possible by making sure that the sign stays there. But if, you know, if it's desire of, you know, council, we'll go back and open that back up and explore it again.
I'll just be gauging the effectiveness. I do want to commend you for your working with another department to ensure we have proper notice, because you have no authority over TPW, but the working relationship is to be commended. Any other questions? All right, I guess you were just perfect. So thank you. Go out and conquer the rest of the day. The next item on the agenda, we're going to get an update on Global Fort Worth. Assistant City Manager Val and Carlo, you guys are going to do a tag team.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm just going to provide a couple of remarks and then turn it over to Carlo to walk through the Global Fort Worth presentation. Just to provide some context, we've provided a couple of informal reports to Mayor and Council over the past 2 years, talking about our work in the arena of Global Fort Worth. And it really started, I'd say, probably 5-10 years ago. Various entities in the city of Fort Worth, including sister cities, the chambers, have all grappled with where we're fitting into international culture and commerce. In working with David Cook, and as we were getting some of the requests and starting to dabble in the idea, we wanted to bring together all the stakeholders who would be interested in making sure that we had a strong international potential global affairs group. We were all talking because we thought there was a lack of a coordinated center for international commerce, trade, and protocol, that we knew there were groups that were doing a little bit in the international front, but we weren't really sure who was coordinating all of those efforts and if there was even coordination between all of those groups. As we started the conversation, we brought sister cities, the chamber, the Fort Worth Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber, the Black Chamber, American Airlines, DFW, local colleges and universities, and the Economic Development Partnership together to start working through where there may be potential gaps in international relations and economic development. Our partner group has been meeting again for about 1.5 years, been continuing worth. If we do need one, where would it be situated? And then third, who would be the Partners Council to help run that group? So today, Carlo is going to walk through the presentation and the work that has gotten us here to date, and a potential recommendation that we have for Mayor and Council. Carlo?
Thank you, Val, for the setup. Mayor Pro Tem, Council. Carlo Capio, Chief of Strategy and Innovation for the City of Fort Worth. You know, whenever we look at a new dynamic program, initiative, we try to ask one question, is what is the specific problem that we're trying to solve? And the idea of Global Fort Worth, this initiative, doesn't just solve one, but three. The first problem that it solves is if you are a business in Fort Worth, which all of you have businesses in your council districts, and you want to take your business abroad, who do you call? Right now, there really is no mechanism. Do you call the chamber? Do you call the ADP? Do you call the city? Do you call sister cities? None of the organizations, it's a challenge for them because it's such a heavy lift that there's nobody that really owns that space. And then the converse is true. What if you're a business abroad that wants to maybe relocate or open an office somewhere in the US or in Fort Worth? There's really no mechanism. There's no phone number to call. There's no email to give. And so the third problem that this solves is if you're involved in our multi-ethnic community in Fort Worth and you have an issue, maybe there's a language barrier or a problem or you need help or support, who in the city do you call? How do you know that? So we think that these are three main problems and institutional voids that this Global Fort Worth idea will solve. These are the organizational values, of course, that this Global Fort Worth would epitomize and help reinforce. And, you know, I'm sure you've seen this before. These are your Mayor and Council strategic vision priorities. If you go left to right, economic development, of course, bringing new companies here and taking our local companies abroad. Second, community safety. You know, we gain 53 people a day here in Fort Worth. It's important for us to know where people are coming from so we know how to best support them. And then the third with responsible growth, with the number of language interpretation. I'm glad we hired our first translator interpreter. That's really important. But what else does our multi-ethnic community need here in the city of Fort Worth? So really, to be quite frank, this is an economic development strategy. We've worked closely with Robert Stearns, and actually, in the economic development vision statement, this is what it says. You can see it talks about putting Fort Worth on the international stage and a hub for global businesses. So we feel like this fits just like a hand in the glove. And David Cook, our city manager, his work plan specifically talks about economic development and customer service. And those are two things that this really hits on. Now, I have to be honest, it causes me great pain to show you this next slide, because of the top 13 cities, largest cities in the country, the city of Fort Worth is the largest without a proper office of international protocol or global affairs. And even some cities that are smaller, like Columbus, Charlotte, San Francisco, Indianapolis, all have some kind of formal mechanism. You can see it visually here on the screen. And I find this remarkable. You know, it's a high concentration in California and on the coast and in Texas. And so this begs the question, if you're an international company that wants to open up an office in the US, you're likely to go to the usual suspects, New York, LA, Chicago. Maybe you'll come to Texas because we are the state that does the most business of any state in the country. Now you get to Texas and we're number 5 after Houston, San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas. So how can we elevate to make sure that we are up at the top of that list? And in terms of population, you already know that we're an increasingly diverse city. But did you know that in the city of Fort Worth, 1 out of every 6 residents was born in another country? And 1/3 of all households speak a language other than English. And it's important to point out that this is a very teachable moment, because the more that you can learn about other cultures, other languages, other religions, that is like, we call it an antidote to ignorance and xenophobia and discrimination and racism. It's a clear pathway. And when we see kids that go abroad for the first time and come back, they see the world through a different lens. So can we create that opportunity for our other folks that maybe haven't had a chance to go abroad? But here's the beauty of what we have in Fort Worth and the Texas brand, is that anywhere you go around the world, cowboys are cool. Whether you're a young man from Uganda or 2 young ladies from Lithuania. This is a picture that we took last year. We go to the Smart Cities Conference in Barcelona. We set up a big backdrop with the herd. We were passing out cowboy hats, and these 3 folks immediately came up to me. They had never heard of Fort Worth, but they recognized the cowboy, and they came right up to us, took selfies. They put them on their social media, so all their friends in their network knew there's this place called Fort Worth. And here's the clincher, is that the 2 ladies on the right from Lithuania, they work at the U.S. Embassy in Lithuania. So we brought them in, we told them all about why Fort Worth is a great place to do business. So now, whenever they have a major company in Lithuania who wants to come to the U.S., well, they might consider New York or LA or Chicago, but they've guaranteed us that Fort Worth will now be on that short list, which is pretty cool. Imagine if we could replicate that in other embassies in other countries in the world. We'd have a ton of champions and apostles vouching for our city. So here's our recommendation. We have gone through a very competitive process, and we were recommending that we choose TIP Strategies. They have done a lot of work already with our Economic Development Department. They helped with the strategic plan. Robert and the Economic Development Department knows them really, really well. And so here are the 4 steps that they recommend. Number 1, the feasibility of the program. This is important because we've had 2 previous iterations of an international center in Fort Worth, dating back maybe 25 years ago, and neither one of them has failed. So how can we set this up to where it's sustainable far into the future? We look at the inventory and what we're missing, the gaps, look at best practices from peer cities like San Antonio. They have an outstanding global affairs group. And then the Partners Council that Val mentioned. This is important because the city is not going at this alone. We have a number of stakeholders in the city and the county. Here's a list of them. that have all pledged to support this initiative, Global Fort Worth. And so we're trying to solicit some support financially to help fund TIP strategies as we look at hiring the consultant. So in summary, the next steps for them is on the 31st of October, next Tuesday, you should see an M&C coming to you to recommend hiring TIP strategies and funding the amount. It would take them about 9 months to do their full study, and then staff will come back and give an update. And so I'll close in the words of perhaps the greatest salesman in the history for the city of Fort Worth, and that was Amon Carter. He said, "A man cannot live off of his community. He must live with it." And I find it so apropos that here we are almost a century later using the same quote from Amon Carter talking about economic development and customer service. And those are the two core tenets of how he built his empire, and he loved Fort Worth tried and true. So in closing, if we want to make Fort Worth a world-class city, we have to make sure the world knows who we are and why it's such a great place to do business, all while supporting people that live here in our city. So I'm happy to open it up to any comments or questions you might have.
Our first question from Councilmember Hill.
Carlo, thank you for the presentation. That was really interesting. I had a couple questions. One, my first, I guess, response is it seems very duplicative of why we split off and did the chamber and the economic development partnership. So I wanted to better understand your relationship with Robert Allen and his team and how that would work. The partners you listed, that they're going to be financially responsible to contribute to Global Fort Worth. I mean, as I understand, they're also all contributing to raising money to the Economic Development Partnership to do something similar. So can you just kind of walk me through how that relationship would work and how you will separate responsibilities?
Sure. So I'm not sure. I think some of them are contributing to the EDP, not all of them. But we've talked to Robert Allen at EDP, and we said, "Hey, are you interested in recruiting internationally, bringing companies?" He said, "That is such a heavy lift. We just don't. We're not going to have the bandwidth for that." So there's a void there somewhere that it needs to happen, and we feel like Fort Worth, that creating its own initiative here in the city may be helpful. And Val, I know you've spoken with him.
I think that in his role, he's working to figure out how we work together on this. He attended our kickoff meeting to start coming up with strategies. I think Economic Development Partnership feels that there may be a gap that Global Fort Worth could fill, but I think he's open to exploring and seeing what that is. And definitely finding out what the assessment reveals once TIP comes in and does interviews with Robert specifically and the other stakeholders to determine where there may be gaps.
And how would this relationship also work with Robert Stearns and Fort Worth our economic development?
Very closely. We had wanted, and I had asked Robert kind of on the fly to help with presenting, and so he can come up here and speak for himself. But I mean, economic development has been at the table and is supportive of this. They've really been the tip of the spear as we've been having these conversations.
Okay. I think my main concern was mission creep. I mean, where does Fort Worth Economic Development Partnership take over? Since their job is really to go out and recruit companies and bring them to Fort Worth. And then, I know the city's role in this too. I just want to make sure that we're all clear on what the end goal is. Because I think you have really 3 great goals outlined. They just seem very broad to be put under one tenet.
Yeah, and I think we're hoping TIP will also help as they're interviewing us and the other stakeholders to, again, determine how those relationships work and how we can work better together so we're not duplicating efforts. And again, I do want to reiterate that everyone does have to pay to play. I know that's come up before, but just on the front end of this project, every partner that's at the table is willing to commit financially to the assessment.
And this probably is not a fair question. Sorry, this is
That's
my last
okay.
one. Is there a budget outlined, or that will be a result coming from TIP on how much we'll spend on international travel, recruitment? Do you have any idea?
I mean, the contract is not to exceed $100,000, I believe.
No, I
which-
mean the department.
Oh, no, we don't.
Okay.
We don't have any preliminary indications yet of what that department would look like or what it would cost to run it.
Okay, next Councilmember Charlie, followed by Councilmember Carlos.
So I just have a question on the funding aspect of it. The pay to play, which I understand, but we already give the city of Fort Worth, the taxpayers give money to quite a few of these different organizations, and they're going to turn right back around and give that money right back to us?
Good question.
So I'm just kind of confused on how that's gonna work, because
Essentially, it is kind of what's happening in some way, because some of these organizations do receive money from Fort Worth and from other sources. But we're asking all of these stakeholders to go back and work with their boards and other interested parties to try to find that funding. I do think there are instances, right, where we're paying money to the chamber and then we're asking them to pay us back. So we'll need to work closely with Robert and his team to make sure the money they are paying for those efforts that are tied to a contract with economic development are fully funded. We haven't gotten to where we're looking at people's books to see the transactions and how they make that happen. But I think we're aware of that and want to make sure none of those promised services are degraded through this process.
Thank you, Councilmember. Now we'll
Yeah, I think
have-
Robert may be able to jump in and help with that as well.
I'll just touch on quickly, just to clarify some comments. So right now, the city does not fund the Fort Worth Chamber. We do fund the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber and the Fort Worth Metropolitan Black Chamber. Those are two separate contracts that are actually handled through our diversity and equity department. So Christina Brooks oversees those. But those are strictly focused on building MWBE capacity. So that's really what they're doing, is small business development and MBE capacity. So any dollars that they would utilize to support this initiative would have to come from a separate source. Normally they're normal fundraising activities.
So no swapping money, okay.
No, there would definitely be a separation of funds.
Councilmember Carlos, then Allen.
All right, I may have missed this if you included it, apologies, but for the tip assessment outcomes, what timeline would you ascribe to them?
Yeah, I think it was a 9-month. They would do this feasibility study, look at inventory gaps, and then come back with a full recommendation. About a 6 to 9 month process to really do it up well, and then staff would come to you all with the recommendations formally.
Okay, thank you.
Allen.
So thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. A couple of quick questions. The first one is, for the $100,000 for the study, how much of that's funded through the partners there? Are they not actually funding at this point?
We've got about a fourth to a third covered by the partners, and then the city will make up the difference.
Okay. And the second question kind of piggybacks on a question earlier where it was asked, how much would we be looking for, potentially moving forward based on the recommendations? We don't know, and I get that. Can we get an idea of what the 12 cities ahead of us are spending? That should be a public record.
Yes, that's part of the, in the breakdown and setting this up is looking at peer cities. Specifically, San Antonio is widely heralded as one of the best global offices in the world. So not reinventing the wheel, just looking to see what works best from them and then localizing it here to Fort Worth.
Okay, but we don't have any idea how much they spend currently?
Not yet, no, because they do a lot of foreign direct investment. It's kind of a mix, and what we're doing are kind of 3 specific things. And this will likely morph into something else a little larger and more robust, but those are the 3 lowest hanging fruits, if you will.
Okay, appreciate the answers.
Councilmember Hill.
One more question, and I'm going to follow your question, Alan. If we can figure out how much they're spending, do we need to spend $100,000 on a study to duplicate what another city has done? Or do we have relationships where we can work with them and see, before we start going down this road to spend more money on another study, to understand how they're doing it, what they're doing it, and how they work with their economic development? If they have a partnership or their chamber, I'd love to know that.
Mm-hmm. And TIP is, they are the tip top, no pun intended, but they do this globally. And so it's hard to take one model from another city and just plug it into Fort Worth. They've worked all around the country and the world, and they know Fort Worth already. So I think they'd be able to give us guidance on how to set it up. Because remember, we've tried this twice. We've had international centers 2 times. They probably all started with good intentions, and maybe they weren't well enough funded. I'm not sure. But I think putting money in on the front end to make sure that we've got the experts looking at this, to setting it up to be a sustainable model is the right way to go.
And Carlo, don't forget our budgets like ours are public information, so that should be pretty easy. And I think we have a question from Councilmember Beck.
I just have a short question. I appreciate you engaging universities, because I think they want to be engaged with what we're doing. Other than Tarleton, did you speak with UTA or A&M or UNTL Science Center, TCU?
I saw UNT.
Yep, we've got, and I'll go back to the slide. We've got Tarleton, TCC, UNTL Science Center. We're working on TCU. So if you're watching TCU, I'm calling soon, and UTA as well. But yeah, regional partners to try and,
Texas Wesleyan,
Texas Wesleyan, yes, of course.
yeah, Texas A&M.
Yeah, and they're part of
A&M.
Tarleton, so I think they may be,
You
I
mean
need to find out.
Tarleton's part of them.
Tarleton's part of them,
Right.
sorry.
Sticky. Okay.
I think part of where I know that other efforts haven't been successful in the past, we think this one, hopefully in bringing together all partners who are willing to come to the table and work in the international space, from universities to chambers to businesses, we're hoping to make sure we have the right people at the table to really understand what the needs are and where the gaps exist, so we can try to mitigate those.
Okay, thank you so much. Before we go into the last presentation, our city attorney has a very important announcement to make.
Yes, we will not have quorum for our 6 PM meeting tonight, so it will be canceled.
Everybody get that? We will not be here at 6, and for the listening audience, there is no meeting. And now it's time for future agenda items. I'll go around the table. Oh, okay. Carlos, any future agenda items?
I have none.
Charlie? Jared? Good, okay. We're at Macy.
I have a list. I'd like to request an IR for the process in which the city site selects and contracts with landfills. The second one is I'd like to know for the past fiscal year and this fiscal year to date, the amount spent, the names of the companies and the projects worked on for any external audits or external consultants hired by the city of Fort Worth. And I think it'd be helpful just to have, as a presentation, have the Fort Worth Economic Development Partnership come and do a presentation with the chamber so we can all get together in one room and understand how everybody's working together instead of getting piecemeal presentations.
I'm going around the table. Jeanette? Alan? Elizabeth?
I'm going to request that we have our partners at the Tarrant County Homeless Coalition, along with Tara Perez, kind of give us an update on the state of homelessness here in Fort Worth and what we've done and what we've been doing, particularly since we have allocated a significant number of ARPA funds. And then to staff, I'd also like potentially a quarterly update to our Neighborhood and Quality Revitalization Committee so that we can keep our eye on that ball, because I think it's running away from us.
The only item I have involves the school districts, that we touch in terms of looking forward to some type of meeting with school leaders and council. So I don't know how you all figure that out. I think we touched 14 districts. So we really do need to communicate. Any other business? Is there a motion to adjourn? Do I need a motion? Okay, is there a second? All in favor? Okay, none opposed. And with that, the meeting is over. Go about your day.